Good. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We welcome those of you who are with us now on YouTube and on Facebook Live and on TempleShalom.com. All three of those places, whichever one you're on, welcome. And welcome to all of you who are here at Temple Shalom with us in the building as we begin this beautiful Shabbat, which is not only a celebration of Shabbat, but it's a celebration of Bob. If you don't know Bob, you'll find out who Bob is tomorrow, but Graham is here too. I think he might be the same guy. Page 128 in your Siddur. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Page 129, the opposite page, right near the bottom of the page, not quite at the bottom, but one song above. Ki eshmera Shabbat, because I watch over Shabbat. El yishmereni, God will watch over me. Oti le'ol me'ad is a sign forever. Beino uveini, between God and me. This is an old Sephardic melody, this melody for Ki eshmera Shabbat. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Oti le'ol me'ad beino uveini. Oti le'ol me'ad beino uveini. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Ki eshmera Shabbat el yishmereni. Oti le'ol me'ad beino uveini. Oti le'ol me'ad beino uveini. If you will turn just back a few pages to page 120. Page 120, we find our candle lighting blessings. And as Lori just called them, we're going to invite the Fab Five to come on up here. Graham and his immediate family, his parents and his two sisters, to come join us as they light our Shabbat candles for us. Amen. We want to wish Mazel Tov to the entire Malone family. Graham, should I thank all of them, or do you just want me to congratulate you? All right, it's just you. Sorry, the rest of you lose out. It's just a Mazel Tov to Graham. Maybe we'll say Mazel Tov to the rest of you tomorrow. And I hope that you'll all join us tomorrow morning as well as we continue to celebrate Graham's Bar Mitzvah. Graham's going to lead us through some of our prayers this evening. And the rest of the family is going to participate too. And so Mazel Tov to you and Shabbat Shalom to everyone. Thank you. On page 130, we continue as we welcome in Shabbat with some of the Psalms of Kabbalat Shabbat, saying goodbye to the week and saying hello to Shabbat, saying goodbye to busyness and saying hello to a time of rest. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Naria, naria, litzur yishenu, nikadma fana b'toda. Naria, naria, litzur yishenu, bizmirot naria lo. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina l'Adonai. From Psalm 96 on page 131. Near the bottom of the page we say, Yismechu hashamayim, the heavens will be glad, v'tagel haaretz, and the land will also be joyful, Yiram hayam, and the sea will sing joyfully, umelo'o, and all that fills the sky and the earth and the sea will be joyful with God's creation, Yismechu hashamayim. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, umelo. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, umelo. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. As we turn to the top of page 133, we read together words that come from the 97th Psalm. Adonai is sovereign, let the earth exult, the many islands rejoice. Dense clouds are around God, righteousness and justice are the base of God's throne. O you who love Adonai, hate evil. God guards the lives of God's loyal ones, saving them from the hand of the wicked. Light is sown for the righteous, radiance for the upright. O you righteous, rejoice in Adonai and acclaim God's holy name. Those words, light is sown for the righteous, or zaru alat tzaddik, and radiance for the upright, ul yishrei lev simcha. 4 lines from the bottom of page 132. 4 lines and 3 lines from the bottom. Those are the 2 lines that will sing together joyfully, that if we are people who are righteous and we are, as the translation says, if we are upright, the translation really says that we are straightforward of heart is the translation. They got a little poetic to say that we would be upright, but if we are righteous and upright, we are blessed with light and with radiance in the world. The translation really says that we get light and we get joy. Or zarua lat tzadik uyishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik uyishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik uyishrei lev simcha. Uyishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik uyishrei lev simcha. O Yishrei lev simcha, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai. Or zarua lat tzadik, o Yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik, o Yishrei lev simcha. If you will read with me at the bottom of page 135 from Psalm 99. Adonai enthroned on cherubim is sovereign. Peoples tremble, the earth quakes. Adonai is great in Zion and exalted above all peoples. They praise your name as great and awesome. God is holy. Mighty ruler who loves justice, it was you who established equity. You who worked righteous judgment in Jacob. Exalt Adonai our God and bow down to God's footstool. God is holy. Exalt Adonai our God and bow toward God's holy hill, for Adonai our God is holy. Whenever I read the translation that they've made for these words in this book, the words bow down at God's footstool, the words say v'ishtachavu l'hadom raglav, at the place of God's feet. When I think of bowing down at God's footstool, it always brings me back to my childhood, to a word that I don't think I've said since my childhood. Growing up, my grandfather had a chair that he sat in, and right in front of the chair was the hassock. Has anybody used that word since like 1978? I don't think so. But the hassock, it was the footstool. And my brother and I, we would sit on the floor right next to that footstool where my grandfather would put his feet up, and he would teach us stuff, and he would tell us stories. And so I always get that vision in my head whenever I read the translation that this particular Siddur has given, of bow down at God's footstool, of kind of sitting there at the feet of my grandfather and getting stories and learning lessons. And it's the same idea that that's supposed to portray for us, that when we bow down before God, it's one, to show reverence for God, but it's also to be in God's presence, to learn lessons from what God gives to us. We read those lessons in the Torah, both, as I call it, capital T Torah, that's the scrolls that are in there, and lowercase t Torah, all of Jewish learning. And so the prayer finishes by saying that we bow down at God's holy mountain where we receive that Torah. The last three lines of the Hebrew on page 135, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu, we bow down at God's holy mountain, for God is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lehar kodsho. As we turn to page 138 and 139, we come to Lecha Dodi, the Kabbalistic rabbis who lived in Sfat some 500 or so years ago, went along with a vision that was originally presented back in Mishnaic times, and then they ran with that vision, this vision of that Shabbat is a bride, and the Jewish people are the groom, and the coming together of the time of Shabbat is a marriage between one party and the other party. And that when the bride comes into a wedding, everybody stands up and turns and welcomes in the bride. And that moment of joy that's expressed in the wedding, that's the same moment of joy that we should feel as we welcome in Shabbat. And all of these psalms that we've sung so far are supposed to rid ourselves of all the tsuris and worry of the entire week, so that there's no worries of anything. Right, Graham? No worries of anything, right? No nerves, no nothing. We're all ready to go and just be peaceful in this time of Shabbat. And so we welcome in Shabbat, as the Kabbalists did 500 years ago, with this beautiful poem of the image of a bride and the image of coming in, of the beauty and the rest of Shabbat. Page 138. Lecha lecha dodi, Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela la 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 lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Ishmi'anu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'letchila la 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 la. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha. Ki mekor habracha. Mirosh mikedem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machsheva tchila la 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 la. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Go to verse number 5 at the top of the next page. Hit'oreri. Ki ba'orech kumi ori. Uri shir daberi. Kevod Adonai alahich nigla la 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 la. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. Lecha dodi. Likrat kala. Pnei Shabbat nikabela. We rise, so we welcome Shabbat. Oh, enter in peace, O crown of bride. Enter in gladness, enter in joy. Come to the people that keep faith. Enter, O bride, as we turn toward the door to welcome in the Shabbat. Boi v'shalom ateret bala. Gam b'simcha ובצולה תוך אמוני עם סגולה בואי חלה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת חלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת חלה פני שבת נקבלה לה 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 לך דודי לקראת חלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת חלה פני שבת נקבלה. And we've welcomed in Shabbat. As we welcome Shabbat, we should welcome each other. So before you sit down, turn to the people behind you, in front of you, next to you. Wish the people around you Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And then once you've said Shabbat Shalom, you can be seated. And while you're sitting down, you can turn yourselves to page 140. On page 140, you'll find Psalm 92, the Psalm of Shabbat. We are told in the Talmud, in Masechet Tamid, that this is the song that the Levites would sing as they were preparing for Shabbat on Friday, as they were preparing everything inside the temple on Saturday for sacrifices, etc., etc. They would sing this particular psalm. Certainly not to this melody, because this melody is about 100 or so years old, maybe 150 years old at the most. But they had some sort of ancient melody that we know they sang. There's no recording, not only, there's no MP3, there's not even a cassette tape. Graham, do you know what a cassette tape is?
Don't you put in like a jukebox?
Do you play that on a jukebox? Lori, Clint, we need to have a talk. No, it's okay that you don't know what wait. Peyton, you know, right? Sasha, cassette tape? Yeah? Okay, so somewhere between Sasha and Graham, we lost knowing what a cassette tape was. So somewhere in the last 4 years, we've lost cassette tape. But we don't even have any writing. We don't have any musical notation, nothing. We don't know the melody that the ancient Levites used to sing this song. So over the centuries, Jewish composers have written different melodies to sing this song. But it was certainly a song of joy of bringing in Shabbat. And so we're going to do a little duet here, and you can join in on our duet. So I guess that's a giant duet, maybe. I'll have to check my vocabulary book, but I think when 2 and more people sing it, it's not a duet, it's called a giant duet in some music books. So Graham and I are going to lead you as you sing with us, Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat. Let us sing a Psalm of Shabbat, Psalm 92 on page 140.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lahadot L'Adonai, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon.
Here's where you join with us. Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat,
Tov Lahadot L'Adonai, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon.
Lahagid baboker chasdecha ve'emunatecha baleilot alei asor ve'aleina ve'lalei higayon bechinor. You can join with Graham.
Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lahadot L'Adonai, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon.
Ki simachtani Adonai b'fo'olecha v'ma'aseh yadecha arani ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai me'od amku machshotecha.
Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbat, Tov Lahadot L'Adonai, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Uzamer L'Shimcha Elyon.
Ulizamer L'Shimcha Elyon, Ulizamer L'Shimcha. You get the last note.
I did.
Elyon. There we go. Perfect. We're going to continue. Graham's going to sit down for a little while for a few prayers, and he's going to come back and join us in just a couple of minutes. We turn to page 144 as we transition from our Kabbalat Shabbat service into our Ma'ariv, from our preparatory service into our evening service. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei rabba ve'alma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala ba'agala uvizman kariv v'meru amen. Yehei shmei rabba mevarach le'alam olam me'almaya yitbarach yitbarach v'ishtabach Vitpa'ar vitroman vitnase vitadar vitale vitalal shemei dukudesha richu le'elad min kober chata v'shir hata tushbechata v'nechemata damiron be'alma v'meru amen. Page 146, we rise as we invite ourselves to prayer. And then we accept that invitation as well with the Baruch Hu. Lai 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 lai. Barechu et Adonai HaMevorach Baruch Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed HaMevorach HaMevorach Leolam Ha'ed. We can be seated. We continue as we give thanks for creation with the words that we'll read together on page 148 in the middle of the page. Blessed are you, Adonai our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name. Ever-living God, may you reign continually over us into eternity. Blessed are you, Adonai, who brings on the evening. El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'arif Aravim. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. If you take a look at the Hebrew of the prayer we just read, there's an interesting little commentary about this prayer. If you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down in the Hebrew. Just count from the top, 8 lines down in the Hebrew. Even if you're not a Hebrew scholar, you can do this. If you're not a Hebrew scholar, I should probably tell you that Hebrew goes from right to left. If you are a Hebrew scholar, you already know that. But if you're not a Hebrew scholar, right to left. So you'll see the very first word on that line. Everybody see that word? How many letters are there? The correct answer is a lot of them, right? Take a look at the first line. Look at the very last word on the first line. How many letters are there? 2. In this prayer is the shortest word in the Hebrew language. It's only 2 letters. We have several 2-letter words in the Hebrew language. This one happens to be the Yud Yud. We say Adonai. It's one of the names of God. If we look again back to that 8th line, B'mishmerotehem. That happens to be the very longest word in the Hebrew language. And it means in their orbits. So we have God, who then created everything in its proper place. From the 2 letters Yud Yud to B'mishmerotehem, the longest word in Hebrew. From the smallest thing to the biggest thing, God created everything in its proper place. There's a book called Otzar Tfilot. It means a treasure chest of prayer. And if you read that book, you can find it's all sorts of beautiful commentaries that analyze little pieces of our prayer book. When I was in rabbinical school, one of my professors and I were discussing it, and he said to me, you should translate that book. There's no English copy of that book. And I said, so after I spend 1,000 hours translating in English, and you and I are the only 2 people who ever read that book in English, what are we going to do with the book? But in that book, there are all these beautiful little treasures, like that little nugget right there that came from a rabbi who lived 800 years ago. That finding just 2 words found separated in this prayer, one that's at the first line and one that's kind of in the middle of the prayer, from the littlest thing to the biggest thing, the littlest Hebrew word to the longest Hebrew word. This prayer of creation speaks to the idea that God created everything and placed it in its proper place. We learn about all of those places where everything is proper in the Torah, and we give thanks for the teachings of Torah on page 150. As we say, everlasting God, you gave us your Torah with its laws and its commandments and its precepts, so that when we lie down and when we rise up, we might contemplate its words from morning until night, that we might think of them each and every day, and they might be our driving force each and every day and all day long. Blessed are you, God, who loved your people Israel and showed us your love by giving us this roadmap for living an ethical and moral Jewish life. Ahavat Olam, page 150. Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Ahavta, Amcha Ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, Ukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadita, Otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochvenu v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki hein chayenu ve'orech yameinu uvahem nehege yomam v'layla nehege yomam v'layla da'avatcha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael ohev amo Yisrael. Contained within the corpus of that Torah are the words that we find on 152 and 153 that Graham is going to lead us in. If we look at the words as they are in the large blueprint on the page, you'll see that the first word has a very large ayin, the third letter in that word. You'll see that the last word at the very end of page 153 in those large blue letters has the daled very large. The reason for that is because that's how it appears in the Torah. Those two letters are larger than the other letters in that sentence in the Torah. The rabbis explore a few different reasons of why. The prevalent explanation, which I'm convinced is wrong, but it's in the Talmud, so I have to tell you that it's right, is that ayin and daled spell the word aid. Aid means witness. We are all witnesses to the oneness of God. Isn't that a beautiful lesson? The Talmud says that's the reason, but I disagree with the Talmud. I actually like one of the lessons that's taught in Mikra'ot Gedolot, which are medieval commentaries by rabbis who lived in the 13th, 14th, 15th centuries. And one of the rabbis there taught this, that ayin is there instead of an aleph. An ayin and an aleph are both silent letters. If you change the ayin to an aleph, ayin, shema, means to listen, to heed, and to obey. Shema. If I put an aleph there, the word becomes shema. The accent goes on the other syllable. And instead of shema, which means listen and to heed these words, shema means maybe. Let's translate it that way. Maybe, O Israel, Adonai is our God, there is one God. Probably a bad thing if we make that mistake. They enlarged the ayin to make sure that you said shema and not shema. So you pronounce it correctly. Again, at the very end, the daled, which some people, especially some of our religious school students, mistake an aleph or a daled for a resh. They both kind of have that curve. One's got the little extra thing on the right hand end, but sometimes a daled and a resh, people confuse them. Echad, Adonai Echad, there is one God. If we put a resh there, it becomes Adonai Acher, which means God is strange or different. Also not something we want to say. So this medieval rabbi says that the letters are enlarged not to say that we are witnesses to the oneness of God, but to make sure that when we say these words, we don't mispronounce them and change drastically what these words are supposed to teach us. And so as we say these words, we speak of the oneness of God and listening to God's ways in the world and passing them on from generation to generation, as we'll read in the next paragraph on the next page. And this weekend, we celebrate that idea of passing them from generation to generation. And so, since you're the one helping us celebrate from generation to generation, Graham, we're going to have you lead us in Shema and Vaha.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
Page 154.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha be'kol levacha uve'kol nafshecha uve'kol meodecha ve'chayu chadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha ve'shinatam levanecha ve'dibarta bam Beshitacha bevetecha, uvlektacha avaderech, ukshachbacha, uvkumecha, ukshartam leot al yadecha, vechayu letodafod beinenecha, uvtavtam al muzot betecha, uvisharecha.
You know, Graham, I have a question for you. If I asked you to translate those words for us, and maybe translate them not directly, but maybe like in kind of a poetic way. Could you translate those words for us in kind of a poetic way? If you don't tell anyone to look on page 155, I won't either.
Wait, 155, 154?
155.
I mean, well, then I would look at 155 and say it.
Go for it.
Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you're tired or you're rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the door of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God.
As we turn to page, turn my microphone. As we turn to page 157, we come to the Ge'ulah, the prayer of redemption. We give thanks for God redeeming us from Egypt, from the narrow places, from slavery, and we bring ourselves out of our own narrow places, out of our own slaveries toward freedom. We read together at the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. And as we speak of marching together, we turn to page 158, as together with Graham, as he leads us, we sing the song that our ancient ancestors sang as they made their way from freedom to freedom from slavery. As they made their way through the parted sea of reeds, they sang these words, "Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders?" Graham.
Micha mocha ba'im Adonai, micha mocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, osefele.
We read together at the bottom of the page, "Thus it is said, Adonai redeemed Jacob from a hand stronger than his own. Praised are you, Adonai, for redeeming Israel." As we turn to page 160, Graham, you get to relax for a page here. We each night ask God to lie us down in peace, to cause us to rise again to life, to protect us from enemy and illness and war, from famine and sorrow and wrongdoing, to watch over our coming and our going, to give us life and peace, and to spread over us a shelter of God's peace. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך. The last three lines in Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל ועל ירושלים. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו בשלום. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו בשלום. And now as we turn to page 162, on the eve of Shabbat, we remind ourselves of the commandment to observe Shabbat. Moses went up Mount Sinai 3 separate times. And each time God gave Moses more and more to tell us. And well, as Moses was leaving that final time, God said to Moses one last thing that you should remind the people of. Graham, do you know what Moses said to the people?
No.
I'm going to give you the hint again. Ready? As we turn to page 162, as Moses was about to leave the mountain for the final time, God told Moses to say to the people,
The prayer?
what did he say? God said it in Hebrew, but we'll say it in English right now. You want to take a guess what it was? I'd go with the top of 162 if I were you. That's the safe answer. I'd go with the safe answer.
Vishamru.
Vishamru. What does it mean? Excuse us for a moment. Don't tell anybody I said, but it's right there. Go for it. Tell us what it means. Because I'm curious.
It says the people of Israel shall keep Shabbat.
Yeah, that's enough. Good. And Shabbat is a sign between us and God for all time. And so, Graham's going to lead us as we join together with him at the top, page 162, as he leads us in Vishamru.
Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam berlit olam.
Ben Yuvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam oti leolam.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et Shabbat l'doratam berlit olam.
Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam berlit olam.
Uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash.
Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat l'doratam berlit olam.
As we turn to page 164, we come to the Amidah, a time for us to stand both together and individually in God's presence to sing praises of God at the beginning, and then to give thanks for this Shabbat in the middle of our prayer. And finally, we end with a prayer for peace. As we turn to page 164, Graham is going to lead us through the first couple of paragraphs of the Amidah. We all rise.
Adonai, sifai taitifa, ufi yagi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'motienu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Tzkach v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah, Ha-El Hagadol Hagibor v'Anora, El Yom Go Melech Hasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chastei Avot V'Imiot, V'Im Guel Livnei V'Nechem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, V'Ezret Shara, Atah Gibor Ve'an Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah, Rav Leoshia, Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem, Mechayel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Berafeh Cholim, Umantir Asurim, Kahaim Emunato Lishnei Afar, Michamo HaBal Givurot, Umido Melah, Melech Meimi, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'emanata l'chakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol.
Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh v'kadoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently either in Hebrew or English on pages 172 through 180 or 173 through 181, or the prayers that you find written in your own hearts and your own mind. When you finish your silent prayers, please be seated.
Say Shalom Mimramav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael ve'ru v'imru amen. Say shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
You can go chill. Thank you, Graham, for leading us through the beginning and end of our Amidah. Graham will join us again at the end of our service, and then he'll be leading us through quite a bit of our service tomorrow morning and reading some Torah and Haftarah and teaching us from his Torah portion as well. But we'll get to visit with him one more time this evening. So we turn in our Siddur to page 371. We think of those who are in need of healing. Within our congregation, we ask for Refuah Shlema, for complete healing, for Yishav Zaza and Carrie Schillinger, for Betsy Appel, for Robert Oppenheim, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Sylvia Chuk, Uvain Ben Sipora, Stephen Sharrow, Chaim Mordechai Ben Shmuel Yisaschar, Rosalind Weinberg, Irene Lambert, Moshe Ben Avraham, John Mitchell, Alan Davidson, the Weiss family and the Schwartz family, Arnold Simon, Aryeh Tzvi Ben Chana. Do we have anyone else that anyone in the congregation has on their list for healing tonight? Any other names? Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? We also include in our prayers for healing all those who are suffering from the COVID-19 pandemic. Here in the United States, the 9,689,837 currently reported cases. In Israel, the 20,125 currently reported cases. And worldwide, the 17,840,464 currently reported cases. May each and every one of them find healing as quickly as possible. We read and sing together in the middle of page 371. Mi sheberach Avoteinu mikor habracha leimoteinu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing. And let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imoteinu mikor habracha leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. This week we read from a Torah portion called Lech Lecha. the third Torah portion in our cycle of reading the book of Genesis. We made it all the way from creation to Noah, and then we made it to Abraham. At the beginning of the portion begins with the words Lech Lecha. That's why we call it Lech Lecha. We usually call the portion by the first couple of words or the first significant words. And there's a debate over how we should understand these words Lech Lecha. Lech is the command form, or the jussive form for the other grammar nerds in the room along with me. It's the jussive form of the verb to go. And Lecha, that's where the debate comes. It really means to you, or it means yours, or it means within you, or it means to you, or it means from you. That's why the rabbis debate, because it can mean all of those things. The rabbis of the Hasidic movement looking into the Kabbalistic world look at this and they say, God tells Abraham, go on a journey. And that's the only thing they agree on. Abraham is supposed to go on a journey. What they don't agree on is to where is that journey. Because if Lech Lecha means go to you, it means that he should go on a journey within himself. If Lech Lecha means get thee out, which is how the Old English version of Jewish Publication Society translated it, if it means to go out, it means to go away from yourself to somewhere new. If it means go from you, it means try to find a new journey. And so where is the journey that Abraham departs for going to end? One group of rabbis in this world of Kabbalistic thought says that we should look at the journey being that Abraham is supposed to go on a journey from where he is to a new place, because where he is a place of riches and wealth. It's a place of selfishness and showing off our own personal wealth, because he lives in Ur, which is one of the richest ancient cities in the world. And he goes on a journey. He goes first to Beersheba, and he goes to Hebron, and he goes from being in a well-to-do family in a rich city with a house with a 90-inch screen TV and a Maserati, or at least the ancient equivalents of those things. And he heads off to Beersheba, where he lives in a goatskin tent. He went from wealth and riches to poverty. But he also went from being self-centered to thinking about others, because unlike most people who live in a desert in a tent, and anybody who's ever been in the military who's been shipped overseas could tell you if they've been in the Middle East, you don't leave all the sides of your tent open, because that's how sand gets everywhere. You want at least 3 sides closed so that the sand stays out, but at the 4th side you can leave open to go in and out. But Abraham, we're told, left his tent open on all sides so that he could welcome strangers no matter from where they came. He went from a self-centered world to a world thinking of others. Yet other Kabbalistic rabbis say Lech Lecha means go to you. Go within yourself. Because if you don't dig deeply inside yourself, you'll never find out who you truly are. You'll never find out what the true essence of your being is. And you'll never become the one that you are supposed to be. So it leads us to a question. Were the rabbis who said, go to the faraway place and go to other people, were they correct? Or were the rabbis who said, you need to look within yourself? That's the commandment to Abraham. Lech Lecha means go somewhere. Lech Lecha means go inside yourself. Which one of them is correct? And of course, the Jewish answer to that question is, yes, they are. Because both of those are worthy journeys. The Sfas Emes was a 17th and 18th century, 18th and 19th century Kabbalistic thinker. He's called the Sfas Emes. His real name is Ari Leib the Elder, but Sfas Emes was his famous commentary on the Torah. He says that we should to be like Abraham, we should be a mehalech. Lech, lecha, you can hear lech in mehalech. Mehalech is one who lechs, and lech means goes. So a mehalech is one who goes. So if we become a mehalech, one who goes, whether we go on a journey to somewhere else where we help others, or we go on a journey within ourselves to find our inner self, or whether one of those two journeys leads us to the other one of those two journeys. As long as we make that journey, we follow in Abraham's footsteps, perhaps literally, perhaps figuratively. That we go within ourselves, we go out into the world to see others, and we become someone who is a mehalech, someone who goes on that journey. Abraham went from a place that he knew, a place of comfort, to a place he didn't know. There's an old expression, it's a play on something in the Talmud, and it made its way into, there's a great Israeli song that uses this phrase, Mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal. It means if you change your place, you change your luck. To go from where we are now to go to a better place, we might need to change our place, whether it's a physical place or a spiritual place. If you ever get to listen to some Israeli music, there's a great band called Kaveret. They were the Beatles of Israel in the 1970s. They had a song called Yo-Ya. Translated into English, Yo-Ya means Yo-Ya. That's what it means in English. But one of the verses, it ends with Mishaneh makom, mishaneh mazal. If you change your place, you change your luck. They took a bunch of, in that song, a bunch of old, very traditional Jewish sayings and put them in a new place. In the song, it says, once there was a guy sitting on the electric chair. He was about to be killed for the crime that he had committed. And he said, I have an idea. They always told me if I change my place, I'll change my luck. The whole song's full of kind of punny sort of things like that. But for us, it's not a pun to change our place. If we became a mahalech, if we become like Abraham, go within ourselves or go out of ourselves to others, we can change ourselves and we can change others, and indeed we can change the world. This is what going on that journey is all about. When Abraham went on that journey, he was already an adult. Today we as adults go on that journey, but also as children we go on that journey. And we hope that Graham and his fellow students, like Bob and the other fellow students, they will make their way within themselves and outwardly as well, and follow in the footsteps of Abraham. Go to a new place to not only change their luck, but perhaps change the luck of others, and in some way also change the luck of the world as we all go on those journeys. We'll learn a little bit more about how we can go on the same journey that Abraham went on from Graham. He's going to teach us a little bit tomorrow after he reads a little Torah for us along the way. May we be blessed with a beautiful journey each and every day and each and every year. And may we learn a little bit more about that journey tomorrow morning as Graham teaches us in our service in the morning. We continue as we turn in our service in our Siddur to page 586 as Graham joins us on the Bima one final time this evening as he gets us started with the words of Aleinu. As he's making his way to the Bima, we will all rise. 586. 586.
Aleinu l'shabeh la'adon hakol la'tet gedula le'otzer bereshit sheno natas v'ersed v'lo shamayu
משפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים הוא אלוהינו אין עוד Emet Malkeinu Efesulato Kakatuv B'Torato Yadata Hayom V'Hashevota Elevavecha Ki Adonai Hua Elohim Bashamayim Mima'al Ve'al haaretz Mitachat Ein Od the middle of 590. Ki hamalchut shelcha hi ulam yimloch bechavod kakatuv b'toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'ne'emar v'ya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz v'yom hahu yeh Adonai echad Ushemo echad Ushemo echad. We can all be seated. We turn our thoughts to those who have died in this season in years gone by. In our yard sites this week, we recall the memories of Anne Batchelder, Bella Michan, Ella Dumont, Harriet Faber, Julie Muling, Charles Lipscher, Raymond Deutsch, Sam Kaufman, Stanley Newman, Barbara Nash, Betty Clayman, Betty Levenstein, Herman Bloom, Louis Suslow, Lottie Goodman, Sean Murphy, Robert Suslow, Frida Klein, Mandel Silver, Melvin Marcus, Minnie Fleischer, Morris Mussman, Minnie Schweller, Sidney Diamond, David Tagar, Herbert Listner, Margaret Vogel, Alexander Weiss, Edward Savaras, Edwin Allen, Francis Hiddleman, Joseph Wallach, Mayor Simon, Milton Brodsky, Jake Barish, Lenore Bartner, Marvin Koskov, Mayor Simon. Are there any other yard sites anyone's observing? Thank you. Any others? We also recall those who have died during this COVID-19 pandemic. In Israel, the 7,976 precious souls. Here in the United States, the 743,840 precious souls who have died from COVID. And worldwide, the 4,904,044 precious souls who have died from the COVID-19 virus. We also recall the memory of Rabbi Arthur Levine, one of my classmates in my graduating class of rabbinical school, who died earlier this morning after a very long battle with pancreatic cancer. He'll be buried in Orange County, California, early Sunday morning. Yihiu zichronam livracha. May their memories all be an eternal blessing. We ask mourners to rise, and those whose custom it is to stand with them as we turn to page 598. 598 in our Siddur. As in all of their memories, we sanctify God's name. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirute v'yamlich malchute. B'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach la'olam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. V'imru amen. We can all be seated. Before we close our service, I'm just going to wander right over this way and grab this piece of paper that's over here and then just return it back over there because, there we go. A few announcements for all of us of important things that we need to know. First of all, this of course is the Bar Mitzvah weekend of Bob. For those of you who are confused, you'll get it tomorrow. We'll continue with our Malone family celebration tomorrow morning as Graham's going to lead us in reading from Parashat Lech Lecha. We want to remind you that Temple Shalom operates off of your dues and your contributions. The Kol Nidre Pledge Appeal is open until December 31st, so if you haven't made your pledge yet, please do. Please also remember that we partner with King Soopers, Amazon Smile, and Box Tops for education. You spend money and we get money. It costs you nothing. Every time you go to King Soopers and spend money, if you're registered with Temple Shalom, we get money. We just got a check this week from people shopping at King Soopers. It was for $1,000. That sounds like a lot of money to you, but I want King Soopers to give us $5,000. So more people need to register. All of you watching at home, register your King Soopers card. Also, Amazon Smile, smile.amazon.com. Register with Temple Shalom. Whatever you buy on Amazon. My family has donated $47 billion to Temple Shalom from what my daughter and wife buy on Amazon. So you can donate that much too. Coming up on tomorrow morning, 9:30 is our service. Again, celebrating with Graham and the rest of the Malone family. And we're excited for, am I allowed to say their names yet or I have to wait till tomorrow? I can say them now. I have to ask Graham's permission. We're excited for Clint and for Lori. And am I allowed to say their names too? I can say Peyton and Sasha, or I'm not supposed to say Peyton and Sasha? I get to say Peyton and Sasha. Mazel tov for Peyton and Sasha also, and the entire extended Malone family. We're very excited about tonight and tomorrow morning, and to learn a little bit from Graham tomorrow morning. We're going to remind you on Sunday there's religious school, and there's also the Men's Club Minion and program, where this month's program is about gold mining. Yes, that's right. Jonathan Cohen, a member of Temple Shalom, who's a modern-day Jewish gold miner. He goes up I-70 a little ways, and he's got his sluice box and all that cool stuff, and he's going to talk about being a modern-day Jewish gold miner. You won't want to miss that. It's a great thing. You can register online. Also, we're still taking reservations for Kobe Humash's next class. For those of you that know Kobe, you'll know he's a great teacher. For those of you that don't know Kobe, let me tell you, he's a great teacher. Lori's shaking her head. A few other people who've been his students in the room. It's a class on the history of the Arab-Israeli conflict. A wonderful class. You can sign up online. November 5th and 6th, pick your service. We're going to be honoring new members. Home is where the challah is. That's right. We'll be honoring new members at that service. And there's some special surprises for new members coming soon to a newsletter near you. November 7th, Sunday, November 7th is our congregational meeting. So please join us for that. And then looking a little forward, you can continue to join me for my series, They Never Taught Me That in Hebrew School. The next one coming up on December 12th, Hidden Israel, things that most tourists never see in Israel. That's right, the shrine to Elvis and the monkey jungle and other kind of cool things that you never knew were in Israel. But they're all there, and you'll get to see some of those great things in that class. Also, next Friday night is a special Friday night. Our Shabbat will be led by two of our religious school teachers, Ilana Sherwood, who's also, I think she's my daughter, and then Hannah Lee Paz, I think she's the daughter of one of my rabbinic classmates who also teaches here in our religious school. They're going to be leading services with all of our religious school students. So I hope that all of our religious school students and all of you will join them on that Friday night. After Graham's Bar Mitzvah, I'm ditching out of town for a little while. I'm going to have lay leaders leading our services for 2 Friday nights and 2 Saturdays in a row. And when I get back from where I'm going, there's going to be some cool programs for me to teach all of you what I learn about Jewish, Muslim, Christian interfaith relations, as well as the Jewish community who are called the Mountain Jews, who live in the mountains of the country of Azerbaijan, because that's where I'm going to a conference to learn about those things. So if you want to come to learn about Mountain Jews, 30,000 of them who live in Azerbaijan, and about Jewish, Muslim, Christian interfaith relations, cool programs coming next month when I return. So join us for all that great stuff. If you will look inside of your Siddur one more time, and if you will look onto page number 645, This week's Torah portion is called Lech Lecha. And at the very top of the page, you will see a song called Lech Lecha. Debbie Friedman wrote this beautiful melody that speaks of this particular Torah portion and talks about that lesson of going places where God will show us so that we ourselves can be a mehalech, we can be one who goes, and when we go, we can become a blessing. And so as we become that blessing, for those of you who are joining us online, after this final closing song, we'll say Laila Tov and Shabbat Shalom to all of you. I hope you'll join us tomorrow as we continue to celebrate the Bar Mitzvah of Graham Malone. For those of you here, we'll join outside for a little Kiddush and motzi and some treats. Lechi la, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi la, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing. Lechi la, Lechi la, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi lach, to a place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim means to a happy life. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi la. And you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing. Lechi la. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. For those of you online, we'll see you all tomorrow morning. For those of you here, we'll see you outside for just a moment for Kiddush and Motzi. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi la. You'll return your sidurim to the back case or the back part right over there. And we'll see you outside in just a moment. And you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing. Lechi la.